Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live on this Monday evening. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you're all very, very well, and I hope you've all had a fantastic weekend. It feels nice to be back in the Geeksvana Live studios after the excitement and the exploration of the trade show DroneX last week. It was a really fantastic time, actually. We really enjoyed ourselves an awful lot, and we're just still now putting the studio back together after taking everything apart, getting all the cameras, everything else like that, and packing them all into a few little cases. I want to say thank you very much to Adnan and Chloe and to all the team at DroneX for making us feel so welcome for the live shows and for all the other videos which we've recorded. We've got a live show coming up later this week where we're going to show you a little bit more about what was happening at DroneX, a few more of the products and services and everything else that was there. It was good fun, I have to say. It was an awful lot of fun. We have already been invited back for next year, and it is going to be bigger and better. We're going to be offering a little bit more in terms of content over the 2 days in September, actually, of next year. So if anybody wants to come along and join us, we're also hoping to have a little live Geeksvana audience area there as well. But there's lots more that I'll talk about in the times that we're coming up for that. So yes, and I wanted to thank as well everybody who came along and said hello to us. It was one of the highlights of the show for me, frankly, to have so many people. I was expecting to bump into a couple of viewers. That's always nice, but we really did have a lot of viewers approach us over the 2 days of the show that just wanted to come and say hi and hang out for a little bit. One even managed to get in on one of the live streams, which was fantastic. But thank you guys, I really do appreciate it. And also, of course, all of you at home that supported it by watching it. The 2 live streams were very well watched, and the videos which we've released since so far, the 2 CAA interview releases have been extremely well watched as well, especially for interviews. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you guys an awful lot. So yeah, so that's that part. And also thanks as well to my support crew, Joanne, who was also my other half. She took a couple of days off work and became my support crew. I actually managed to significantly hurt my foot on the first morning before arriving at the show, which actually made me late for the show, the first day, unfortunately. So I was hobbling around a little bit, so she had to literally look after me. But as well, thank you to Andrew and Stephen, my co-hosts, for joining us in London, all of the great people that joined us and came over, and thank you to all of the fantastic companies who made us feel so welcome as well. It was our first live show from a trade show type environment, and there were so many people there that wanted to come and talk to us. It was fantastic, from all over the world and from all over the drone UAS sectors as well. So it really was fantastic. So thank you for that. Again, thank you very much, everybody in the chat as well, for joining me this evening. It's great to see all of the usual names out there. I was about to say faces. I have little faces that I imagine. Some, of course, I've now met. Mike Henrack, great to see you, sir. Andy Keith, Del Smeghead, our senior moderator. Hello, sir. Ellis Mean, Recovery One Drone. Nick Harborn Photography, good to see you as well. AZ Drone Dude, Gary Brunt Aerials, great to see you as well. Johnny DRC and Clocked, everybody that Stephen Flyby guys, everyone that's joining us. Thank you very, very much. Max 420, I see you there as well. So thank you very much. Smeghead said there's a slight delay. Can anybody else confirm that? Because I can play with that very, very slightly. Although I'm not going to obsess over that this evening. Let's put that down to 200 and see if that's okay. Yeah, okay. Maybe if I hide behind the microphone. Would that be okay? Yeah, seems fine for everybody else. So I'm going to actually pop that back, and we'll let Andy have his own little thing there. There we go. Right. Anyway, so tonight we're going to be talking about something. It's a bit of a cryptic title, and I've got some links to drop in the description after tonight's show. But this is one of those stories and one of those situations, one of those chats I need to have with our audience, basically, and really see what you guys think about something. So I'm going to need you to bear with me today. I've also got notes that I'm going to be comparing with and that type of thing as well. This is a slightly more complex story than the normal type of thing which we bring to you, and it's going to need time over this live stream. It's not going to drag on too long either, though, to correctly and to really form correctly and to present both sides. Not that there really are sides to this as such. It will all come clear, don't worry. Now, there was a press release put out just before the weekend, which on face value looks like something which us UK drone hobbyists should be very excited about. However, when you pick past the overall surface story and look deeper into the wording and general theme of the press release and so-called drone access policy, there are concerns which I feel need to be aired and discussed. Now, it's important for me to start by saying this is not an expose, though. This is not There is no sensational story here as such. This is a general conversation about what perhaps I hope will be a slight course correct that is needed. Now, the reason I'm presenting this via the media of live stream is to have a discussion with you, our audience. So let me know your thoughts as this story rolls on this evening in the live chat. And if you're watching via the replay, please do get involved in the conversation by commenting below as we go as well. I read all the comments and try to answer all of them as well. How we feel about this as air users will inform and evolve my own understanding of the situation as well. So this really is a discussion for us to have. For live viewers, please tag at Geeksvana at the start of your message if it's related to this story, and I can come back to your point and see it more easily in the chat, as we do have quite a few people in this evening, so it'll be easier for me to see your messages. So first of all, let's talk about the positive. And there's a lot of positive here to unbox, okay? And just a concern to unbox, which could grow heads, as it were. So first of all, let's talk about the positive. If you follow Geeksvana closely, you will be aware, very well aware, that as a channel, we have shown support towards the mapping software company and UTM and UAS support company, Drone Prep. In fact, co-founder and the genius behind the software itself, Claire Owen, has even been on Geeksvana, as I'm sure you'll remember, to kindly and very bravely give us a live demo of the mapping tools on offer with Drone Prep. I've actually got a video which I'm making at the moment regarding their daylight tool, actually, which is one where it'll tell you when the sunrise is predicted and sunset's predicted. I'm going to have a bit of Top Gear-esque fun with that and try and do a couple of challenges, actually, which I'm hoping for Drone Prep's assistance with that yeah, you've all met Claire as well. I've also met Beth from the team as well, although I'm yet to meet Gareth Watmore, who's the co-founder and CEO, beyond an earlier video call we had. It seemed, unfortunately, at DroneX, we managed to miss each other, although the rest of the team, I want to say thank you to you guys for popping over and saying hello. So Drone Prep have even shared Geeksvana videos on their LinkedIn and that type of thing, and Facebook as recently as this weekend, and were kind enough to mark me as a group expert in their Facebook group, open to help drone flyers in the UK. So our working relationship is great, and I've no axe to grind whatsoever. It's quite the opposite, in fact. So please just keep that in mind. Excuse me for setting such a long caveat. I just don't want anybody to think that I'm going after somebody here. Drone Prep also works as a wider business on the future of UAS flight in the UK, including partnerships to enable some very exciting leaps forward in the drone delivery sector, especially with Royal Mail and others, to help keep the UK on the cutting edge of some exciting and valuable developments. They're not just a software company. If you follow their social medias and Gareth and Beth's and Claire's social medias, you'll see some very, very exciting stuff in there, frankly. Now, this again is also a positive note to try and show my experience of this company before we are even remotely critical. Claire from Drone Prep also stepped in to help an event take place earlier this year, which was with Elsmeghead's West Midlands Drone Club. And we had problems with finding somewhere to fly and take off because of takeoff permission from Birmingham Council. And I was actually due to attend that particular one as well. There's actually a live stream and a video, if you go further back on the Geeksvana channel and on Elsmeghead's channel as well, which we broadcast directly from there. Now, Claire from Drone Prep stepped in and actually found a site to fly from, which we hugely appreciate through her very large contact list. It was actually a club field just outside Birmingham, which we were able to fly at. So it was great. That was the first time I met Claire and Beth personally, and it was absolutely fantastic. So the feeling I've always been left with when dealing with Claire and her colleagues is one of excitement about the future of drones in the UK airspace and a genuine desire to engage with drone operators from the most novice of beginner to the largest of enterprise. Even when the cameras stop and there's no PR advantage, the Drone Prep team continue to engage and learn from drone operators. Genuinely, I cannot stress that enough. These guys actually want to talk to us, and Smeghead will say the same thing from the point of view of when Claire and Beth were down at the drone meets. They were spot on, and they were very much looking to engage with us and talk to us. It wasn't just a PR thing. Now, the issue I have, the response over my concerns raised about the press release and drone policy has been excellent as well, with both Claire and Beth, who originally sent me the releases, being forthcoming with information and being very keen to discuss the situation. Now, I only offer this context because I don't want anyone to be left an overall negative impression here. It is more the policy itself and the accompanying press release and wording thereof and the narrative that creates that I would like to discuss. So now we've established that, let's look at the press release and the drone policy itself. It relates to what is the first release of its kind from a landowner who has used the drone prep consultancy and support to form a drone access policy. There'll be a link to the press release and policy in the description below just after the show, as I'll not be reading the entire press release today. However, as background, Kipling Hall and Gardens is a country house in North Yorkshire, which is open to the public for visitors looking to enjoy the house and gardens. The first 3 paragraphs of the press release, which I will just pull up on screen here so you can see it there, reads as follows. With the rising popularity of drone flying, Kipling Hall and Gardens has published a drone access policy detailing how pilots can enjoy exploring the skies over the rural North Yorkshire estate. The policy is the first of its kind for recreational flight. 2 flying zones have been created in the policy, one over the lake and its shoreline, and the other over an L-shaped zone over the estate parkland beyond the Peninsula Wood. I'll show you viewers that in a few moments because there is a little handy map on the policy document itself. There are approximately 250,000 hobbyists and 10,000 professional entities flying drones in the UK, creating a boom in low-level airspace traffic. The Civil Aviation Authority has produced the UK Drone Code, which details how pilots can fly safely and legally. It is against the law to fly a drone or model aircraft without having the required IDs. Many historic sites, areas of natural beauty, or private landowners have banned the use of drones, leaving pilots grounded without space to fly. Of course, there are some places where it is not safe to fly a drone, as the drone code details. Let me actually just cycle through this as I'm talking so you can see the parts that we are at. So yes, but there is an emerging market of venues creating safe places to fly with clear guidance outlined in drone access policies. So there's that title again. Then there is a quote from James Etherington, who is the director of Kipling Halls and Gardens. We've worked with Drone Prep. Let me bring that up to where we are there. We've worked with Drone Prep, a specialist organisation connecting pilots and landowners to create a policy that clearly defines when, where and how pilots can access our airspace. The policy is very detailed and precautions have been taken to safeguard the historic house and the environment. The fly zones mean that drones will be nowhere near this historic architecture of the listed buildings and hall. We will pause access to the estate during lambing season and will assess any issues at the lake zone during wild bird nesting season. We are thrilled to be launching our drone access policy. It's a trial for the autumn months, which are often quieter for us, so we hope that pilots will be a new audience for us. The drones will not alter other visitors' enjoyments, and some may even find them an interesting addition. So that's the part of that particular part of the press release that I want to run through. And I just want to quickly, actually, let me bring up the actual policy document very briefly, because one thing I want to show you on there is actually just how stunning this place is. And to have access to be able to fly here is, very much a real treat, frankly. These shots were taken, I believe, by the drone prep pilot in residence, Chris Gorman. Now, on the face of this seems like a fantastic policy to allow hobbyists flight at a stunning location, one which I would welcome and I would love to see repeated all over the UK. But before we continue and look at the detail of the actual drone access policy itself, I'd like to get back to the release, which was quoted again by Kipling Hall, and one line in particular. We've worked with Drone Prep, a specialist organisation connecting pilots and landowners to create a policy that clearly defines when, where and how pilots can access our airspace. This line is where my own concerns have been piqued. Certainly, a high number of viewers who have read this release and accompanying policy document have raised the issue with me as well. Despite this being a permission for takeoff and landing on private land, which is essentially the permission that the owner has within their rights to provide, this point is not clarified once throughout the release or policy document. Instead, the use of the line "how pilots can access our airspace" seems to create a narrative that somehow this policy restricts the airspace above the land and hall, which of course it does not. There is no flight restrictions in the area whatsoever. In fact, if you look at Altitude Angel's excellent dronesafetymap.com, it'll show one of the clearest maps in terms of restrictions I've seen in a long time, especially as someone who flies in the highly congested southeast of England airspace. Now, despite the positive nature of this policy, it's trying to give us access to somewhere to fly. The wording of the release and the policy document itself gives me concerns that this is an attempt to control the hobby and could even create an overreach issue. Not every hobbyist flyer is confident enough to challenge the language used in these documents. And my fear is that if it was repeated across the country many times over, you would find large parts of the airspace being dealt with via non-CAA approved policies, which really should stick to discussing takeoff and landing permissions and not seek to place any airspace restrictions in the mind of the public or the drone flyer alike. Imagine, if you like, a scenario where I'm flying over a site with one of these drone access policies in place. My flight is from land, not controlled by the landowner who issued the policy, and airspace wise, drone code wise, my flight is completely legal. What happens if approached by a member of staff from the land or a member of the public who's read the document stating where you can and cannot fly over the land? Because it doesn't mention takeoff and landing permission. You see, it talks about airspace. This will lead to a potential confrontation and could put some drone flyers off from flying. I welcome wholeheartedly and I fully support any policy from a landowner who wish to provide takeoff and landing permission on their land, but the waters must not be muddied by using wording which seems to discuss the drone flight itself, something beyond the powers of the landowner or any consultancy working on their behalf. As mentioned previously, I have an excellent working relationship with Drone Prep, and they have been very open about the discussion of this issue and have gone to great ends to ensure that the takeoff and landing permission is the only thing they seek to restrict. However, the reason I titled this stream Boost for the Hobby or Wolf in Sheep's Clothing is for this simple fact. If policies and press releases worded this way spring up all over the country, we will benefit hugely from a lot more places to fly from. However, by actively engaging and following these types of policy, which I will come on to fully in a moment, we could also be sleepwalking into further restrictions on airspace being put on in place by the landowner. If we all get used to the landowner telling us where we can and cannot fly, it's a lot easier to then bring that in as a regulation, frankly. Not that I'm saying that that's certainly nothing. Drone Prep are not a regulator and not trying to be. So something I would hope no stakeholder would want to see in the UK airspace is that kind of action. Someone who did not have the relationship I have with Drone Prep could ask if this is a cynical attempt to regulate the hobby to benefit landowners, something which raises a lot of concerns to me. Also, the overall discussion of access to airspace for paying visitors flies directly in the face of the CAA policy in terms of ensuring drone flyers are not charged to use airspace. And that's an important one to discuss, because again, if you're talking about come to our land and as a paying visitor you can take off from here, no problem. But because these documents, because these press releases talk about airspace, I start to feel a little bit more uncomfortable with that. If the flight followed the drone code and the landowner issues were dealt with appropriately and proportionately by the drone hobbyist, and of course we've just had a CAA interview talking about that, there is nothing to stop flights over that area, even if they were actually against that particular policy. So let's take a look at the policy document itself, and I'll talk through a few points here. Just very quickly, thank you again for everybody that's joining us in the chat there. Elsmeg, our airspace. Yes, that's one of the first thing. And GMI Visuals, Jason, they own the land, not the airspace. Yes. And this is the same thing which has come up a few times. And Airless Mean says, seems a tweak is in order. And yes, exactly. That's exactly, let me just get rid of that. That's exactly what I'm hoping for here, are tweaks. And as I said at the beginning, a course correction rather than, but I want to highlight this because I don't want to see this come up time and time again in the same format, frankly, because it is, in my opinion, misleading to the hobby and the general public. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So again, stunning, absolutely stunning location. And, you know, if we can get this wording sorted out, I can't wait to go fly there, frankly. And as it says there, drone access policy, Kipling Halls and Gardens. So summary, Kipling Hall and Gardens is an independently owned house and gardens in Richmond, North Yorkshire. The site boasts a 400-year-old Jacobean house, parkland and walled gardens. Facilities include a tea room and restrooms. 2 designated drone zones have been allocated for hobbyists looking to fly small unmanned aircraft. Recreational drone flight is permitted for visitors subject to the terms and conditions set out in this policy. All commercial activity, as you might expect, requires pre-authorization from Kipling Hall and Gardens. So no kind of issue there as such with that particular side of the wording for me. Then you come on to the access policy. Drone pilots are welcome at Kipling Hall and Gardens. Hurrah, great to hear. Please read the policy in full prior to visiting and remember the key points. So you need to buy a general admission ticket and tell the reception that you wish to fly a drone. So that's a good idea because, again, they know how many people are on site looking to fly. Have your flyer ID, operator ID and insurance ready before you fly. Fly within the drone zones and be aware of other visitors. Follow the UK drone code. Now, here they are touching on airspace from the point of view of saying fly within the drone zones. But again, if they're giving you permission to take off and land within their site, it is more than acceptable than to say, actually, we'd prefer if you do use that permission to fly within these areas. Otherwise, you can't fly from here. So I'm okay with that side of the airspace restriction, if you like. Then we come on to the access policy, general policy. The recreational flying of drones is permitted within the designated drone zones. Please see figure 1. 2, flying is restricted. Just to highlight that a second there. Flying is restricted to the public opening hours of Kipling Hall and Gardens. Opening hours are subject to change. Please check our website before visiting. 3, all visitors must hold a valid admission ticket. Visitors wishing to fly a drone must sign in at reception on arrival and sign out on departure. All pilots must hold valid operator ID and flyer ID where required by law. Consult the UK drone code for further details. Flying must be carried out in accordance with UK law. All drone operators must follow the UK drone code at all times and avoid flying in close proximity to other visitors. Again, I'm not going to pick on every little part, but the close proximity to other visitors, that really is a drone code, a CAP 722 thing. If you're flying a sub 250 gram drone, we obviously have vastly reduced distances subject to Article 241 and the flight itself being safe. All pilots must hold third-party liability insurance with coverage up to a value of £1 million. Kipling Hall and Gardens does not accept liability for any damage or injury as a result of drone operations. And again, if they want us to have insurance to take off from their land, no problem. Permission to fly is authorised by Kipling Hall and Gardens and can be withdrawn at any time. This policy covers recreational flying only. Pilots wishing to carry out commercial activities must request prior authorisation, something which you would certainly be expecting. And all flying will be suspended during lambing season in January, February and March, which most of us would certainly agree with that as well. And here we have a figure showing the areas, the zones, both as a straight map and then as a satellite view. So again, fairly easy to understand. Access policy, drone zones. The areas marked in figure 1 are designated drone zones and flying is permitted within them subject to the terms of this policy. Flying elsewhere on the grounds is strictly prohibited. Drone zones are not solely for the use of drone operators and other visitors may be present. Drone operators should be aware, of course, and of course avoid trying to disturb them. Keep the drone 15 feet above at all times, apart from during takeoff and landing when it is safe to do so. So there's bits and pieces of advice there. And then it talks about commercial activities. Again, some more fantastic photographs, including an internal shot there as well, and location and contact points. And again, the access point for discussion regarding this will be drone prep. So the policy we've just read together does not mention takeoff permission specifically, and that's really my issue even once. It does, however, mention flight restrictions or flight permissions, or allude to the power of restricting the airspace 10 times in a very short document. The concern for me is that this type of document could, if unchallenged, be taken up by more landowners who base their own policy wording off this wording and then believe they have the rights to regulate airspace and drone flight. Now, in terms of what would I like to see happen, because I think there's an awful lot of positivity here, I'd like to see this policy document withdrawn and the press release retracted, although it's out there and of course there's lots of stories that have been printed based on it. Then a document released which is clear about the permissions it actually provides surrounding the ability to take off and land on the Kipling Hall and Gardens estate, rather than the use of language which, my opinion, could be read as an attempt to restrict flights and control airspace. Now, again, my issue here isn't with drone prep specifically, and as mentioned before, I have a lot of praise for them, but this is a dangerous path to go down, and I thought it was my duty to respond to the viewers raising this to me directly in both my DMs and via email, and thank you everybody for reaching out. I really do appreciate it. If the changes are made and the future policies are carefully formed to ensure that the reader fully understands the nature of the permissions surrounding takeoff and landing, then I would fully 100% wholeheartedly support it. More places of a stunning beauty like this to fly from, the better, frankly, but not at the cost of the misunderstood wording or really sleepwalking into tighter hobby rules. one of my issues here is that if we as drone operators are expected to fly legally and understand the terminology in place or suffer the consequences, then those seeking to establish drone access policies should also do the same, frankly, especially when produced in partnership with a professional service providing expert advice. In this situation, I would really expect that policy to almost read perfectly because it has been based with a professional company supporting them. When reading the press reports on this story, which have been out there in the Yorkshire local presses, they're all focused on airspace permission, and that's my issue. It creates a misleading and inaccurate narrative, as it's been created as a policy which does not mention the very thing it seeks to control, takeoff and landing, which is no surprise. Now, let's have a look at your responses in the chat list. Let me just get rid of those notes there very briefly and bring up my chat. Now I get off my soapbox a little bit. So how are we, guys? It's really great to see you all. Thank you very much for being here. There's a lot of you in here for an early Monday evening. I appreciate it. I hope I haven't held up anybody's evening meals or anything. Covaction Dronography, good to see you, sir. Hello to all you awesome Brips. I missed my stay in the UK. Yes, Covaction's actually just been to the UK. He's got some great content coming up based on that, I think. And yeah, very much as people are saying, it is, you know, the airspace issue that most have an issue. It's Mike Plowman. It's simply wrong and should be reworded, not their airspace. And I think that's really what I've been trying to get across as well. And Drone Prep are very open. They've been listening. They've been talking. I've had emails only an hour or so before going on, and I was talking to Claire and Beth on Friday as well. So the correspondence is there, the communication is there. We're not talking about a brick wall here. And as I say, they do an awful lot for the hobby and for the UAS sector in general. So I'm hoping that we can get this resolved. As Mike Plowman says again, they cannot create any airspace corridor or shape. And that's the thing to me, is that, you know, you could be flying completely legitimately off site and actually flying over that site, and because it says, you know, flight is restricted, and it uses airspace type terminology in both the press release and the drone access policy, my problem is the wider community, the landowner and also the adjoining landowners, may see that as a more definitive rule on not being able to fly, rather than it just being takeoff and landing, because again, it doesn't actually mention takeoff and landing anywhere in there. Drone Prep, it's the cost of Drone Prep. AirMap got drilled for even thinking of charging for use. I'm not saying it's not got value. Yeah, indeed. Certain areas to take off from seems fairer rather than our space, like they own it, etc. from LSB. No, and I agree with that completely. Flyby Guys is pointing out to drone pilots, AirMap did not inform via press release. It was a tweet, not official. However, it did damage them severely. And this is a different thing. This isn't Drone Prep looking to charge for the airspace or anything. This is Drone Prep negotiating, not negotiating, but consulting with the landowner to open up places to fly. This is a positive thing. If they can repeat this up and down the country, it will be fantastic for us. I would love to visit some of the stately homes and country parks in the south of England and be able to fly from there confidently. More than happily support them by buying a ticket and buying lunch at the cafe and everything else like that. What a fantastic day out for us flyers. I've long said that the National Trust and English Heritage are losing income by turning drone pilots away in such a negative way, basically. Even if they said, you know, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on a Wednesday or something, they could give us windows. But anyway, so this isn't about Drone Prep themselves trying to do that. That isn't their role in this. But I would have liked to have seen, with Drone Prep involved, I would have liked to have seen it being made very, very clear that the drone policy was for takeoff and landing. So Michael McPherson, so the issue here is they don't, so that's just popped up. Let me try and find that back. You're all making some fantastic comments here. Yeah, Michael McPherson. So the issue is they don't own the airspace, but they do own the rights to the image of their property. Well, no, it's more that the talk of owning airspace and controlling airspace and restricting is language, obviously, which we would prefer to see used in terms of the drone code and with the CAA, not from landowners. And the landowners can give us permission to take off and land, but they can't restrict the use of the airspace above their property. Conversely, you can, if you're taking off from an approved site in that land, they can say to you, it's within their rights to say, would you mind staying within this particular zone because it's safer and that type of thing. But again, that's guidance, and they can then withdraw their takeoff permission. My issue is that this is being sold as a takeoff permission, but nowhere does it actually talk about that. It sounds much more like an airspace restriction, which it very much cannot be. Elsmega, maybe they're annoyed at people randomly flying around the outside of the grounds, not paying for visitors, and have just put this policy in place to prevent that. Yeah, I know what you mean, Andy. I think actually it is a genuine, and I hope it's a genuine, I suppose we'll find out, in the coming months, that it's a genuine attempt to get this whole sort of drone policy thing that Drone Prep are talking about, and bringing pilots and landowners together to open up more spaces to fly, and to be clear where landowners don't want you as well. So I think that that's a good thing. Mike Plowman again, I don't think can own rights to the imagery. The black belt barrister guy covered this in his recent drone related law video as well. Yes, and again, they haven't, it's only from the commercial side of things. I'm not even going to step into that. This is very much talking about the airspace from a hobbyist point of view. So they want us to share the footage with them before we go home. No, they're just basically asking, they're offering for you to be able to share. Again, it's going to be a very positive thing for them if there are hundreds of, and I've always again said this about National Trust, if there are suddenly hundreds of videos and photographs all over social media about Kipling Hall and how beautiful it is, then not only drone flyers are going to flock to it, we're all going to flock to it, frankly, which is fantastic. So Mike Plowman says they still have the National Trust attitude. You can't fly in lambing season, etc. We are decent people. Request that we don't try and tell us we can't. Travels with Rosie. I long for a day where the National Trust and English Heritage and the like give us the windows and spots to take off from. I'm happy to even pay a charge for that. Yeah, same. And I'm happy to support that venue by paying an entry fee and following their rules for takeoff and landing. No problem with that at all. And as I say, I think this is potentially a very good boost for the hobby. I really do. But it is a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing until we get this wording changed. So as I say, that would be my hope, frankly. Simon Stickland. Hi, Simon. Great to see you. Has anyone had a National Trust or similar try to prosecute for overflight when takeoff and landing agreed elsewhere? No. I've never heard of that situation. And again, this is part of my issue, that somebody, even a commercial flyer, even actually somebody flying not connected with that land, could easily be flying perfectly legitimately with takeoff and landing permission elsewhere over a site, yeah, it would be a completely legal flight, frankly, and that's part of my issue with it as well. So again, I'm not just talking about Kipling Hall here from the point of view of their access policy, because it's a very large estate. I'm talking about this policy wording being used again and again up and down the country, which is something which I think would be an issue. Okay, so that is basically the story in a nutshell. I hope you've all enjoyed tonight's live stream. It is the first live stream this week. We've got a couple of others coming up. We do have a Microdrone 4.0 update coming up later in the week, and we will also be coming to you to give you a bit of a look back at DroneX and bring a few more of the products and services that we found there, which I found very exciting. It was a really, really fantastic show, and I thank them for allowing us there. I will keep you informed on this one. We've also got some further information on the CAA interviews coming up as well. So there's lots and lots happening on Geeksvana. We've got another interview section to come up with Simon Dale of FPV UK, where we're talking about his work on the AirProx reality check side of things, which I'm very excited about. But thank you very much for joining us this evening. I really do appreciate it. Let me know in the comments, anyone that's watching this on a replay, what you think about this below. And as I say, I will keep you fully up to date with the feedback we get directly from Drone Prep. And we hope for a good outcome on this one. Thanks, guys. See you next time on Geeksvana Live.